Hello, hello. I'm Denton, and I have a channel on YouTube called Denton's Tales, which is primarily devoted to the Old Norse, the Viking Age, mythology, history, and all that sort of thing. And I'll put a link to it in the description below. And now I'm going to have a very good friend here, Lilly Magnuson, and we're going to talk about hopefully some interesting things. So over to you, Lilly. Take it away there.
Hello, I am Lilly Magnuson. I have the Lilly and Sam show. We do apothecary stuff. I do some ASMR videos, and of course, Norse paganism stuff.
Mhm. And very good too. Very good too. So I don't know. I think one thing I find quite interesting is the whole Tyr hand amputation thing with Fenrir. And I do sometimes wonder. There was this prophecy that the gods thought that the children of Loki would cause them trouble, and of course Hel, who was actually a perfectly normal woman, contrary to later ideas of maggots dripping out of her,
Right.
eye sockets and that. But Hel is sent to mind the dead, to be custodian of the dead, not goddess of the dead. She wasn't death goddess. But Jormungandr is sort of chucked out into the sea to swim around. And Fenrir is bound up in chains. And I do wonder, was the prophecy a self a self-fulfilling prophecy in so far as Odin's attempt to prevent trouble with Fenrir was actually what caused Fenrir to be troubled, because when he's bound and a sword stuck in his mouth and all this, you know, did Odin himself create what the prophecy was, foretelling? That he brought it about. If he had never done that, Fenrir might not have been the problem that he was.
Yeah.
And of course,
So I
Tyr seems to have been the one who raised him and fed him and did all that, so he had the connection. But anyway, so what's your feeling about that with the
so,
prophecy?
so I have long thought that might have created a paradox. And I
Hmm.
think the first time that I read that story, I was about 17, 18, and I thought, you know, and I was big into Star Trek, so there was always paradoxes in Star Trek, and it made me think,
Yeah.
did this vision that Odin had, where he got afraid of Fenrir and decided he needed to do something about it,
Hmm.
actually cause, because if you tie somebody up, if you imprison somebody for eternity,
Yeah.
they're going to be pretty pissed off, especially if they haven't done anything.
Oh
And
yeah, and
Fenrir hadn't.
Fenrir hadn't done anything. Like, I mean, he was big, he was quite fierce, but he hadn't done anything. He hadn't attacked anyone. He hadn't shown any sign of that. Tyr was feeding him, and the fact I mean, they lied to him. They kept bringing chains, and he broke.
Yeah.
And of course, every time he broke the chains, they'd, oh, there, good for you. They'd tell him, yeah, we just want to see how strong you are. You see, here, try this chain, see if you can break this. Oh, he did. Oh, yeah, yeah.
And he
They
knew
lied to him.
on the
Uh,
third chain, he knew what was going to happen. I feel
you,
like he
well,
knew.
they
That's
did.
when he became hesitant, and that's when he
Yes, he did.
made,
Because, of
he
course,
made somebody make an oath
yes,
for the hand.
yes. Well, they'd gone to the dwarves, of course, and the dwarves made them a chain from the roots of mountains, the beards of women, the sound of cats' footsteps, the
Yes.
breath of a fish, impossible things. And this chain was very light, and Fenrir was very suspicious. Well, I've broken a chain that thick, and now you're bringing me this flimsy. He
Mm,
was very suspicious,
he
and of course,
was.
Tyr is, no, no, everything's fine. No, would I lie to you? Yes, I would, but I'm not telling you. So yeah, but put my hand in his mouth. So
Oh,
he had been
and
lied to.
I also think that Tyr was very hesitant to do what he did.
Hmm,
Over the years, initially I was very angry with Tyr because I felt like Tyr uh, betrayed Fenrir. I felt like it was a Foster type situation, and I felt like he betrayed Fenrir,
Well, he
and it
did
made me very
betray.
angry. But over the years, and through reading more, like for instance, there's the part that says in the attestation that says, "And all the gods laughed
Yes.
except for Tyr."
Hmm. Yes, I
I
don't think he
I,
was happy with the situation, and
I
he.
don't think he didn't laugh because he was going to lose his hand. I think that Tyr was stronger than that, and he's like, I made an
I agree.
oath. This is I'm
I agree.
keeping to my oath. I think he didn't laugh because of what he was having to do.
Yes, I agree. He was put in the position of having to do this to give Fenrir the guarantees. And of course, when Fenrir discovered the treachery and took Tyr's hand, from the Norse point of view, this was Tyr
Wergeld.
paying for the false oath. Um, and that was something that really he at that by that stage he would more or less have expected it and felt, well, okay, he's going to take my hand, but I deserve it. I have broken faith. I have done the one
Yes.
thing that a Norse person, you know, dreaded, and that is breaking an oath. Because even if you were drunk, like
This
when
is
Ragnar
key.
Lothbrok says, "I'll conquer Britain with 2 ships," when he's drunk, he has to do it
Yeah.
because the fact he's drunk doesn't matter. No, you made the oath. Off you go with your 2 ships, and you'll end up in the pit of vipers. So
What you're
Tyr was
saying
well
right
aware.
now is absolutely key. It is
Hmm,
absolutely key. And I feel like this is what people miss with all the Tyr reverence
hmm,
and the Fenrir hate. The story is what shows how just Tyr is,
hmm. Yes, yes,
because he is the one that will go through with it's an injustice. What they do to Fenrir is an injustice.
totally.
He has
Yes.
done nothing wrong. He has committed no crimes other than being big and
Hmm.
strong.
Yes, yes,
And so the justice that Tyr stands for, it's all right there in that story. It is the
yes.
giving of the hand for the injustice that he has committed.
Absolutely. He is regaining his honor by giving his hand
And none of the other
because
gods
of
regain their honor.
exactly. And yes, because he is the honorable one. He has done a dishonorable thing. He has lied to Fenrir. And I mean,
Yeah.
Fenrir has been prejudged by Odin. It's like, well, he might commit a crime. I think we should lock him up. Well, it doesn't work that way. And Tyr has gone along with this because he had no choice. But
Mm-hmm.
having been the one who reared Fenrir from a pup and fed him, there obviously has to be a bond between them, which is
Yeah.
why Fenrir trusts Tyr. When Tyr
Uh-huh.
says, no, this is okay, Fenrir is going to say, well, if you're telling me it'll be okay, man, if that lot told me, I wouldn't believe it. And that's
Right.
an even bigger betrayal because Fenrir thought even Tyr has
Yes.
betrayed me. He's lied to me.
Yeah.
Um, and Tyr, I would say, was very conscious of this, and which is why because I mean, let's face it, he could have pulled his hand back very quick. He didn't.
Yeah.
He left it there. And because the moment he saw Fenrir couldn't break it, all he had to do was take his hand out. He didn't. He
He
deliberately left it,
didn't.
and it was like, take it. I have wronged you. I want my honor back. Take my hand.
Yes.
Um, that's how I would
Absolutely.
see it. The Tyr was honorable. He had done a dishonorable thing, not by his own choice, but because he had to go along with it. But then he agrees to the punishment. You know,
Yes. And
that's
then in Ragnarok, there's a lot of discussion as to whether Garmr is Fenrir. I do not believe that they are one and the same,
I don't think so. No, because
because I believe that
Garmer is there. Garmer seems to be there even when Fenrir isn't. So I
right.
think Garmer is a separate animal. Hmm.
And Garmr stands for the means dog,
Hmm.
and
Yes.
Fenrir is the great wolf. So I believe they're two separate entities. That is
Yes.
why that is why and I believe that Fenrir does not kill Tyr because I believe that the Wergild is paid with the hand. He will not
Yes.
go after him at the end.
No, I wouldn't think so. Yeah, Garmer well, Garmer is a bit like Cerberus in Hades, and
Yes.
he's a sort of gatekeeper. guardian, and he seems to be there. Fenrir is not there, and as you say, one's a dog, the other's a wolf. So yes, I think they are separate, but it's quite an interesting story. And one thing that I am very keen on in all the videos I do is trying to give the correct version, because so much of Norse mythology and the Viking Age as such is wrong. I
Yeah.
mean, just basically, even starting with the horned helmet that they never wore. Um, you have all this kind of thing. You're always told how they were much more brutal than everybody else. They really weren't any more
No.
brutal than anyone else at the time.
Yeah.
They did it more style. I mean, who else had the lovely dragon-headed ships to jump off? But you know, as to the brutality, I mean, if somebody kills you, it doesn't really matter whether it's a Viking or a Crusader or a Saxon. You're dead just the same.
Yeah.
And even how they raped people. Everybody raped someone. In fact, every war
Everybody.
in history, World War II, there were women raped all over. I mean, look what happened to women in Germany at the end of the war. Rapes occur in every war. So the Vikings were no different, but it's never mentioned. See, those women they raped were captives, prisoners of war, if you like. They were their women. You try
Mhm.
raping a woman back home in
Oh
Scandinavia,
yeah, big deal.
you could not
No,
touch a woman without her permission. So they
no.
were very moral. And in the mythology too, so much of it. I mean, you always hear Thor, god of thunder, Skadi, goddess of winter.
Yes.
No, the Greek god, the Norse gods did not have
They're
the
applying the same rules as they applied to the Greeks, Greek gods
exactly.
and
And I mean,
pantheons, and
the
yeah,
Greek gods had like Persephone and Demeter. When Persephone went to spend 6 months with Hades, winter came. When she returned, spring was there, the bunnies were hopping around, the flowers were growing. Oh, it was oh so lovely it was, because with Demeter, Persephone was the summer. The Norse didn't have that. I mean, Freya got
yeah.
her reputation for love because her morals were a bit loose, even with her own brother on one occasion. I mean, oh, yeah. But she
No, no,
enjoyed
they were all
love.
doing that too. So
They were all doing that too. She enjoyed love poems, but she was not goddess of love. I mean, she could have gone to hell for 6 months, and everybody would have been having sex and babies and falling in love exactly the same.
right.
Loki was the god of fire. In fact, Loki wasn't a god at all. He was a Jotun. The fire thing comes from actually was it the Brothers Grimm? I think I wrote about that. Um, Thor wasn't god of thunder. It wasn't his job to make thunder and lightning. He could make an almighty bang when he slammed his hammer, but he had no control. He didn't decide what the weather would be. And Skadi, who wasn't even a god at all to begin with until she married Yorda, um, Skadi wasn't goddess of winter. She enjoyed skiing and hunting in the snow,
Right.
but she had no control over winter. She couldn't have made a snowflake if she'd tried. She was no more goddess of winter than people are who go to Aspen in Colorado to snow in the winter, or Chamonix in the Alps. They're going there to snow. They're not gods of it.
Yeah.
And there's so many of these misconceptions. Hell, of course, is another one. We see this half are normal and half of her is a rotting corpse, and maggots dripping out of her eye socket and all this. And Hell was a perfectly normal looking woman. I mean, how Loki managed that, I don't know, because he was genetically a bit odd. I mean, when you think of it, he has her fairly normal. He has a giant snake and a
A
big
giant
wolf as
snake
kids. I
and a
mean,
wolf.
yeah, now he did have a normal son. What was it, Nari? Nari, I think was his name. He did have a normal son, but everybody overlooks.
And then
Over,
Sleipnir
yeah, it.
as a female horse.
Oh, and Sleipnir, of course. I always thought how funny it was when Loki accused Odin of being ergi or effeminate.
I know.
He had learned
I was
Seder.
like, how dare you?
And I can just imagine Odin saying, "Oh, what about that time that you transformed yourself into a female, got pregnant,
The
and had a baby?"
unmitigated gall.
Yes, and Loki will probably say, probably shouldn't have raised that topic. I mean, for Loki to come out with this, who has shapeshifted into a female and had children, if you like, then to accuse Odin of being effeminate was a bit funny. But there's so many misconceptions about the Viking Age. And what also annoys me is the way all you ever see in most documentaries is raiding, burning, looting, this. the trading. I mean, the Norse were the greatest traders of their age, the greatest explorers. They traded from, you know, Newfoundland across to Baghdad and everywhere in between. They founded settlements. Here in Ireland, I mean, a good 20 or more Irish names come from Old Norse. Um, they they affected every country they settled in. If the Norse had never come to Ireland, this country would be very different with their influence removed. And I mean, they set up what would become the Ukraine, Belarus, and Russia.
Yeah.
Because I mean, until what, the
And
17th
there's,
century,
and
when the Romanovs took over in
I would
Russia,
like to
um,
mention
it
that,
was all Rus, you know.
right. I would like to mention, as far as Tyr goes, that in the Rus areas, their place names have Tyr more frequently, and they have more written documentation of Tyr actually being the main god over there.
Yes, yes, he pops up in several of the religions across Europe at that time. He does make appearances, and there were questions: was he the principal god in the Norse countries at one time? Now there isn't any real evidence for that; it's just a suggestion, a possibility. But yes, he features in quite a lot of the sort of Germanic faiths across Europe.
Yeah. And the place names in Scandinavian areas are about the same as far as Tyr and Odin go, and Thor.
Yes, yeah, they
So
sort of
so
level
there's
out.
not really a, there's not really anything, any delineating factor that says, oh yes, and there's not like an increase in grave goods that are associated with him or anything like that. But there is in the Russian areas that they were in.
I find it quite fascinating, actually. I mean, the whole history of what would become Russia and that. I mean, for centuries, Kiev, of course, was the capital of Rus, and was until the Romanovs came along and transferred it to Moscow and then later to St. Petersburg. But all that area was, of course, from the Swedish uh, Vikings who
Right.
went there. And of course, when they went there, they were Vikings. And that's another thing I like to point out. You were only a Viking when you did something in a ship, because
Yes.
it basically meant a seafarer, a raider, a trader, anything you did in a ship. So if you stayed in Scandinavia, you were a Dane, a Swede, a Norwegian, or a Frisian. They can count as Vikings. Um, and when people say about, say, the Vikings in Dublin here, say, yeah, when they arrived and came ashore with weapons and that, they were Vikings. But once they set up settlements, like Difflin, as they call Dublin, they were no longer Vikings. They were townspeople, they were settlers, they were Norse people living
Farmers,
in
blacksmiths.
Ireland,
Yeah.
because they weren't doing anything in ships, just the same as when they fought each other back home in Scandinavia. If they weren't jumping off a ship, they still weren't Vikings. You
Right.
know, they were just two groups fighting each other. But Viking has come to be used as a sort of nationality. Like they all
Hmm.
came from one place under the king of Viking land, you know,
Yeah.
and it was you could not be a Viking or Vikinger as it was in Norse, but you could go Viking to fara Vikinger. And that distinction is so seldom ever made. They call everybody Viking. But, you have Viking religion, Viking art, Viking this. There was no Viking religion or art. There was plenty of Norwegian, Danish,
Yeah.
and Swedish religion and art. But
Exactly.
it's like, as I said, if you met a German hiking through the Schwarzwald, and you said, like, what are you? He's not going to say, I'm a hiker. No, he's going to say, I'm a
Right.
German. It's yeah, and this is a big
It's like
thing.
if somebody's an engineer, and you're just gonna go, well, now they are engineers,
Hmm,
all of them,
hmm,
all the humans.
hmm. Yeah, it's quite it's something I find quite irritating. You get this incorrect terminology. Well, the same, of course, applies to Valhalla, I don't know how many times I said, well, no, when people say, I'm a Viking, I live the Viking lifestyle, I'm going to Valhalla, and I say, well, no, actually, darling, you're not. Because one, well, for one, you're not Scandinavian. Two, you are not going to die with a sword in your hand. Very unlikely these days.
Very
You're
unlikely.
not going to go anywhere raiding and trading and all that. Police take a dim view of burning monasteries now, and all that.
Yeah.
You're not, and, so you're not a Viking. You can say skull all you like and wear a helmet with horns on it, but you're not a Viking. But as to going to Valhalla, well, Valhalla doesn't exist. It never existed. I mean, there was a place called Valhall, which was the hall of the warriors slain in battle, was what it translates to. Valhalla, I mean, that term did not come into use until centuries afterwards. I mean, it was first used like in the 19th century. Um, there wasn't no such place as Valhalla. It's completely wrong. There was actually a particular phrase in Old Norse. If you said you were going to Valhall, like till what was to, you would say till Valhalla, which meant I'm going to Valhalla, but it still wasn't Valhalla. And
So
but
it sounds like linguistically, it just got altered to
yeah, but it's
the
so comical.
Anglo-Saxon.
And I'm surprised even sort of experts in that still go on saying Valhalla, which is completely wrong. And they also, you're told, Valhalla was the home of the gods. I mean, Wagner even has this at the end of Das Rheingold, where the gods are going across the Rainbow Bridge, into Valhalla, as it is in German, which is a bit closer to the Norse. But they're not. They're going
Right.
into Hosgarda, which is the home of the gods. Valhall, or if you want to call it Valhalla, was just a building, a very
Yeah.
important building, but one of many buildings
Yeah.
in,
Well, and then
in
and then they
Hosgarda.
conveniently leave out that half of the chosen are going to Sesfrimnir,
Yes, they're going to Sicily.
Folkvang.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
is usually overlooked too. So and there's no descriptions of Sessrumnir in the sagas and that, but presumably it would have been of equal size and importance to Valhall because well, it had the same number of people in it.
Right.
And well, another misconception, of course, is the Valkyries, who are seen as the warrior maidens who bring dead warriors, but actually that wasn't their principal job. Their principal job was looking after the dead warriors. I mean, there are accounts where they're told to prepare the tables and blah blah, for new arrivals. But when you think of it, even in those days, warriors were not being killed 24/7. There weren't
Right.
people dying every day, and the Valkyries, they brought mead, they brought the roast boar. They were bar staff, if you like, serving girls to the dead warriors, and I'm sure they also provided. Yes, how should I put this delicately? Perhaps more intimate services. We won't go into
Sure.
that.
Why not?
But
But I would like to point out that
you know,
if they fell in love and got married, they lost their status as Valkyrie.
hmm, it's they are so misunderstood. But all you're told is though they carried dead warriors, and I mean there would have been weeks at a time when nobody got killed in a
Right.
battle or anything, and they'd have been sitting around kind of polishing spears or playing board games or something, waiting for someone to
Hey,
die.
I
No,
have heard that that's what war is like. It's like long extended periods of incredible boredom punctuated by sheer terror.
yes, yes, that's yes. Well, I remember somebody described who didn't like Wagner. Someone described Wagner's operas as half an hour of total boredom interspersed with 5 minutes of glorious music, which is not really very fair. But yes, if the Valkyries had done nothing but collect dead warriors, of course they would have been sitting around, and of course they didn't also collect them; they also chose them.
Yeah.
Because the name means choosers of the
Yeah.
warriors slain in battle.
And
And
yeah, and in the sources, they are doing other things, and they are meeting men. And then I remember, I think it's in the Voluspa where one helps a family. I'm trying to remember the story, but it's over a period of many years.
hmm,
And then
Yes,
where
they had other.
three of them get married for 9 years, and they lose their status as Valkyrie. And then at
Hmm.
the end of 9 years, they leave their husbands and become Valkyrie again.
It's quite interesting, and this choosing is something again that's overlooked because, I mean, Odin had this rather curious thing that if you were a great, wonderful, magnificent warrior, invincible, you were probably going to get killed by Eric the Useless, who dropped his sword every time he
Okay.
drew it, because Odin wants you for his army of the dead up there waiting for Ragnarok. So
Right.
if Hagar the Invincible is going to fight Eric the Useless, and of course Eric the Useless is going to be dead in 10 seconds, well, Odin would send the Valkyries and they would make sure that, he actually won because Odin wants the good warrior, not the bad one. And
Right.
there is in one of the things where a king and his men are killed, and he thinks that he was really better than the other lot, and it shouldn't have happened. And he sees a couple of the Valkyrie are sitting on their horses. And he says, like, my men were better than them and they won. How did this happen? And the Valkyrie says, well, it was our choice that your foeman won, which is another interesting aspect of them because they were there to make sure Odin got the best warriors, which is kind of turning the normal thing on its head. Normally, if you are the superior warrior, you will win.
You will
But
win.
if you were the superior warrior in those days, in the sagas, and that at least, whatever about in reality, you kind of try and stay out of a fight because you think, well, hang on, some little jerk who doesn't know the pointy end from the holy end of the sword is probably going to kill me because this fucking warrior woman sitting there on a horse is going to intervene,
Yeah.
uh, which I think is quite interesting. So the Valkyries are a very very misunderstood. Nor, of course, and have seen it stated a number of times that they were daughters of Odin, and of course they weren't. There was no nepotism when it came to Valkyrie recruitment. You were simply appointed. I mean, there were human Valkyries, there were giants, there were all kinds of women were in the Valkyries. It was just a matter of Odin appointing you
Yeah.
to the job. You didn't have to be related to him. And it's all this kind of sort of misunderstanding and incorrect things that I like to point out. And
Yeah.
but
And I feel like there's a lot
in
of that.
history, well, history in general. I mean, as Napoleon said, history is written by the victors. So of course there has always been, oh well, what they did, very very bad. What we did, very good. So, they killed
Well,
women and children. Yes, you say, well, hang on a minute. Didn't you kill women and children? Yes, we did, but see, we didn't stop them doing it. Very different. So there's always been that. But
yeah,
the,
and
the
misconceptions arise from the fact, this is one of my biggest pet peeves. They arise from the fact that people are not doing their research. They are not reading these stories. They're coming in and they are wanting to become active. They're not sure where to start, or they're too lazy to actually read them, sit down and read them,
they don't they don't
do
check.
research, and then they accept things that they see on Vikings or whatever
Hmm.
as fact when it's not, and it's really,
Yes,
and it's a lot of times it's really far from fact.
yes. A lot of people go by the last YouTube video or something they saw, or they look at a program like Vikings and they think, oh, this is what it was. And like I have a peeve with the like of Vikings because while I mean, I couldn't fault the cast. The cast
Oh, they're
were
fantastic.
really really good, great entertainment, but so much was altered, and the same with those. Oh God, those awful Thor movies. I mean, the actors who played Thor and Loki in them were both brilliant. If they had been in a proper Norse mythological movie, they'd have been good. But you have Thor and Loki being brothers, and you have all this.
Right, and
Um,
it's all switched up, and then people believe that, but it's a comedy,
yes,
it's entertainment.
they
So
believe this,
really,
and it's
it's
so
like,
awesome.
yeah.
A lot of people will think, oh, that's actually true. And I had a job to sit through those. I mean, when I saw the Bifrost, it's like a airport runway with lights down along it. Hell walking around with antlers that would have done credit to a stag at rutting time. It
Yeah.
was so gloriously
People
wrong.
need to take those things as what they are, and that is entertainment. They are neither good nor bad.
They're entertaining.
They're
Yes.
entertaining, but they are not educational.
No, and a lot of people see them as such. And so many, even good documentaries. I mean, I have seen very well researched, very well presented documentaries, but the graphics in them, all it shows is men with swords and axes
Right?
running through burning villages and dragging off women. And you'll hear about the Vikings, the scourge from the north,
The
the
scourge.
terror from the frozen wasteland and all this, descending upon poor Europe.
Yeah.
And
Poor
um,
Europe. Oh, that's a good one. Poor Europe is hilarious, actually.
well, I saw a thing there about Britain, that the Vikings brought the terror from overseas, and I thought, well, hang on a minute, the ancient Britons were driven into Cornwall and Wales by the Germanic tribes, the Anglo-Saxons and Jutes, who became the Anglo-Saxons. So when the Vikings were raiding them, well, that's what they'd done to the ancient Britons,
Right.
and at no time in British history was the country peaceful.
Yeah.
The
Oh,
for
yeah. Oh, yeah.
for a couple of hundred years under the Pax Romana with the Romans, yes, the Roman legions on land
Absolutely.
and the Classis Britannica as their navy
It was
was.
nonstop.
But it was, but the moment the Romans' backs were turned, you had Welshmen coming across raiding into Mercia. You had the Scots coming down, climbing over Hadrian's Wall and attacking Northumbria. You
And I
know,
think even prior to that, there's like Del Riata. And I mean, you get like, you go back a little bit further. It's nonstop.
it's nonstop. Anglo-Saxon Britain was never at peace. The various thanes and kings were fighting each other as well. So, but you have this image of it was all lovely and tra la 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 la. Here we are sniffing flowers. It's so, oh my God, there's these terrible people in
Oh,
ships.
woe is me.
No, the Vikings were the last of the raiders to turn up. There've been
Yeah.
plenty before them. That's another image. Again, even with slave trade. Now Difflin was one of the big centers of slaves
Hmm.
uh, under people like Ivar the Boneless and that. But everybody else was trading slaves as well. The Vikings organized it perhaps into a better business deal, but how they took slaves and all that, and they sold them as far as Constantinople, and that yes they did. So did everybody else. The Vikings did nothing that no one else was doing, and even their brutality. I mean, they paled beside the Crusaders. The Vikings never killed everyone in an entire city
Yeah.
you know, and their brutality. I mean, they were certainly no more brutal than a Roman legion
Right.
because the Romans basically would operate on kill everything in front of you,
Yeah.
human or animal, until an officer tells you to stop. You know,
Right.
the Vikings never slaughtered an entire city.
Yeah.
And much of their violence was. It was rather like the great Mongol warlord Tamerlane, who had a policy: open your gates and no one will be harmed.
Yes.
Close your gates and I have to fight my way in. Nothing, human or animal, will be alive when I leave.
Yeah.
And like he did it once, and after that, people tended to open their gates. And a lot of the Viking ferocity was quite deliberate because I raid a village, I slaughter people, I rape the women, I cook the babies and eat them, kind of thing. Oh, I
Then
mean, no,
there's
I've
terrifying
gone to town
stories
here.
about you. And the
Yes, I
next,
spread this around. Well, the next place I go to, they'll
see,
either run away or they'll give me what I want. I don't have to fight,
exactly.
which saves me casualties and in the long run probably
It's
saves
smart.
everybody casualties. It
Yeah,
makes
it's
it easy.
smart.
So a lot of the violence was calculated. Well, now we make an example of this play. Now make sure a few people get
Yeah.
away to spread the. In fact, Terry Goodkind in his novels, the Sword of Truth novels, he uses that where one of the nasty characters massacres people, but leaves a couple to run to the next town. Now tell them what happened here. So then when I get to the next town, well, they're going to let me in. So even the Viking,
Yeah.
cruelty, it's exaggerated in that everyone else, there was no such thing as a pleasant raid. You
Hmm.
know, I said, you can hardly imagine this the Viking comes ashore and he says, we would like to raid you, would take all your goods and rape your women. Would you mind? So,
Well, and
no,
it's really
no,
funny.
chap. No, go ahead. Lovely to meet people. Drop by anytime you're passing. I don't think much about women, but I can have them. No, there was no friendly raid.
And it's
And it
really, yeah,
wouldn't
it's
matter if
really
it was
funny that the women, the English women, they liked the Vikings. They wanted to go with them.
yes, well, I mean, the St.
They're
Bryce's
like,
Day.
they're clean and they treat us nice. Yeah.
Yes, John of Wallingford, the English chronicler, actually wrote how the English women were sort of leaving their own men and going off with the Norsemen because they were cleaner, and this was terrible. And of course, the
Cleaner, more
Norsemen,
respectful. Yeah.
yes, they treated the women better. And if the Saxon men maybe washed more than once a year and changed their clothes occasionally, maybe the women wouldn't have been going off with the Norsemen.
Right. And that has been backed up by the DNA evidence. It's been
Oh
verified.
yes,
That was in fact true. They did do that.
yes, they did. They did. So there's all these sort of misconceptions in that, which I kind of like to talk about. I mean, I do a few other things on my channel as well, other historical matters and that, but the sort of getting the truth of it is something I like to do. You
And I
know.
love that about you. I've been
Mm.
watching your videos for years.
Oh, yeah, that's
Years.
nice.
Yeah.
You know,
And so
it,
I'm very dedicated to making sure that your new channel gets back up and back
oh,
up to speed.
hopefully. Yes, I could do with more viewers. I mean, I am tempted to say, well, I mean, obviously you watch me because I'm so wonderful, amazing,
Well, you
marvelous, and
are.
I mean, that would sound very big-headed, even though it's perfectly true. But I can't really say how wonderful I am, but you can, no problem. Just keep.
Yeah. And
I don't.
I will repeatedly. I
Tell
will
the
sing it to the moon.
Very good. Very. Well, probably don't have any viewers on the moon, but anyway, go ahead. It yeah, it's nice to do. It's quite interesting, and I mean, I could extend that, I suppose, to so many periods of history when people, get it wrong, and they're become. You have all these stereotypes and things that people think happened that never did. I mean, George Washington never chopped down a cherry tree
Right.
and owned up to it. Nero didn't fiddle while Rome burned. I mean, they weren't going to invent the violin for another 1400 years. And he was
Yeah.
actually in the streets helping to fight the fire. Um, Lord Nelson never wore an eye patch, but somehow people seem to think he did. There's all this kind of thing. Hitler was rejected by the art college because his work wasn't good enough. No, it wasn't.
Oh,
His
I
work was
have one. I have one. Let them
here.
eat cake. Let them eat cake. She was
Yes, let them,
not, she was
let
not
them eat cake.
saying let them eat cake like, pompous cake. She
Yeah.
was saying it was a mistranslation. She was
Yes.
saying open up our bread reserves.
And,
But
and
that
re-
but that bread was referred to as cake.
yes, it was completely wrong. As I said, the Hitler was told to go to the architectural school, but that required a leaving certificate, which he didn't have. There's a whole load of these things. General Custer rushed to get glory and attack the Indian village. If you actually read what happened, no, he didn't. He was following the orders he had, attack when he found the Indians.
Yeah.
So there's so many of these things where the popular version is not what happened, but it has become the accepted version, and
Yes.
I find that quite irritating. Well, here in Ireland, school children were always told about the noble, saintly, pious Brian Boru. Oh, I mean, this guy had a halo glowing over his head. He was so noble, and he was going to drive the evil pagans from the holy land of Ireland. Oh, this guy was so noble. It was wonderful. But the truth of it is, I mean, Brian Boru was a land grabber. He wanted the kingdom of Dyflin for himself. He didn't give a rat's ass who was in charge of it, Danes, Irish. And he'd have had a job to find a pagan in Dyflin at that time because they nearly all converted to Christianity. Even the Norse king of Dyflin founded Christ Church Cathedral here. So, and of course, Brian was also 73 years old. He wasn't leading any army anywhere, and he got killed in his tent by somebody coming back from the battle. But you have this glorious, wonderful image of Brian Boru taught to school children, And there are pictures, there's even a pub near me has this big picture outside, and there's Brian on a horse holding up a crucifix, leading his men,
Oh
and
my.
fantasy.
Yeah.
None of it is actually true. But this is what was taught in Irish schools. And I mean, any glance at the actual historical record would have told
Yeah.
people it was completely wrong. Plus the fact, of course, that the Irish in Dyflin sided with the Danish inhabitants. They fought together against Brian.
Yeah.
The army that met Brian's forces was part Norse and part Irish. So it wasn't even them us, and even that here you hear about the Norse versus the Irish, and this image is created that it was them and us, the Norse, the Vikings on that side,
Yeah.
and the
No,
Irish.
they
But it
in
was
all the
completely
cultures
wrong.
that they went to, they integrated really,
Integrated.
really
They
well.
And even before they integrated here, because actually by the time of the Battle of Clontarf, you wouldn't really have been able to tell a Dane from an Irishman. They were so integrated. But even before that happened in the early days, an Irish chieftain would team up with a Norse chieftain to fight another Norse chieftain. And then that Norse chieftain would help the Irish one fight some Irish petty king. There was a lot of this, the
Well,
enemy of
that's
my
interesting.
enemy
I
is
did
my
not know
friend.
that.
Yes, there was a lot of that. Well, when Ivar the Boneless went to Britain with Olafur the White to lead the great heathen army, he negotiated with several Irish chieftains. Keep an eye on Dyflin for me while I'm away. So he wanted to have somebody friendly at his back when he went. So there was all this kind of thing going on, because a lot of Irish petty rulers and that probably thought, well, these guys can bring goods from countries we can't even reach. They get stuff in from, Constantinople and France and all this.
Right.
They saw an economic and a military advantage to assisting some of the Norsemen. And also, you have to remember, none of those local Irish kings would have seen any great allegiance to Ireland as a nation. Their allegiance was to their own little petty kingdom.
Yeah.
And when they found out that, say, the Norse were no threat to their kingdom, but the Norse chieftain might help them beat the crap out of Brian in the next kingdom, well, then they would team up with them.
Yeah.
So,
And they were so heavily relied upon for that trading,
oh
far
yes,
flung
yes.
trading. I
Hmm.
mean, I think that that kind of was a huge draw for
Oh,
allowing
absolutely.
them in, is because they
Hmm.
were the connection to all these different
Yes, I mean
places.
they had connections everywhere. We know they traded as far as Baghdad, um, all all across the Mediterranean. It was amazing. There's something like 200,000 Arab silver coins have been found in graves in Scandinavia, which had
Huh.
come back from the trading. Um, I mean, the extent of their trading was enormous because they had lovely metalwork, they had furs,
Mhm.
they had amber, which is you can't really get amber around the Mediterranean, but it's plentiful in northern latitudes. Um, so they were very welcome as traders right across Europe.
Yeah.
And their exploration, of course, was amazing. I mean, Greenland and North America, and a lot of people think, of course, Columbus Day, and that should be changed to Leif Erikson Day, since he got there 500 years before Columbus. And of course,
I'd
Columbus never
agree. I'd
Columbus
agree.
never got to America. Columbus
And
discovered some islands in the Caribbean,
it was
totally.
actually
Oh,
a guy named Bjarni. Was it Bjarni?
um,
Bjarni went past America,
oh yeah,
and
yeah, that
he
was.
came back and he told Leif, "Hey, I found this place." He didn't stop. That's
Hmm.
why he's not credited with finding it,
Yes,
because he
yes,
did not set foot on it.
he had
He
seen
saw
it,
it.
and he said there's something out there past Greenland and that.
And I
Yes,
believe his name was Bjarni. I can't remember the last name.
yes, I can't quite remember that one. And of course, we know that the Norse went much further south. I mean, the settlement to Laxon Meadow was found, and another one up at Newfoundland. But an archaeologist discovered grape nuts in a midden heap in Newfoundland.
Yeah.
And grape nuts do not grow north of the St. Lawrence River. They don't. That's like 500 miles further south from Newfoundland.
Yeah.
So we know that the Norse went beyond the St. Lawrence, um, and down to oh, what's it? New Brunswick. Yeah, the grape nuts don't grow north of New Brunswick. So for grape nuts to be found in Newfoundland, somebody had to sail 500 miles further on and bring them back. So we
Right.
know that they got that, and probably further. There's no real proof of that, but they probably went further even than
Oh
that.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, the extent of their trading and that is just absolutely incredible,
Well, and
and
they've
their
been
technological too. I mean, their ships,
they've
they're
done
probably the
studies.
finest ships ever built for the purpose they were built for. You
Yeah.
know, they're
They've
quite
done
and
studies on that stone that was in oh, what was it called? Now I can't remember.
well, that stone that was found in America
In
was
America, and for the longest time everybody said it was a fake. Well, they have
yeah,
done
they were very
really, really
suspicious of it.
thorough studies and they no longer think it's a fake.
I
And
haven't actually seen the most
that's this
recent.
year.
Oh, really? I hadn't seen the most recent ones on it. But
Yeah,
yes,
so
people did find it a bit suspicious.
yeah.
But it's
And that was
quite
really far inland.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean,
Kensington
they
stone,
do
that's what it's
travel.
called.
Well, of course, they're ships. I mean, when you have a ship that needs a draft of 3 feet, you can go very, very far up rivers,
It
and a
was
lot of
far inland next to a river that went all the way.
which is
Yeah.
yes, it's quite possible. A lot of sort of inland towns here in Ireland, of course, were caught by surprise because of that. Because they say, well, sure, the river, that river there, you could cross it and only just get your arse wet, But
Yeah.
a river, the depth of getting your arse wet was all a Viking longship needed.
I
And I'm sure there
know.
must have been many, many settlements in Ireland. Oh, sure, they'll never get a ship down that. We're safe, of course, until the Norsemen did, because with their ships and the technological um, things with the ships, I mean, the shape of the hull. Did you know it actually produces like air bubbles as the ship goes through the water, which gives it a cushion. So they kind of rode on the water rather than through it. And
Interesting.
we don't know, was that pure accident or was that designed that way? Did they know it did that, or was that just a fluke? But
Yeah.
either way it did. And I mean, you had these little ships, which are tiny. I mean, you see a Viking longship and you think, I wouldn't want to go around Dublin Bay in one in bad weather, but these things cross the Atlantic, you know.
Yeah.
I mean,
They were incredible. They
yeah, and you
really
get
incredible.
someone like the far traveler, as they called her. I think she crossed the Atlantic like about 6 or 7 times in one of these things, and
Mhm.
it's yeah. So all these things I find quite fascinating.
Yep.
But yes, so
And your channel handles all of them beautifully.
I've probably talked long enough on various topics like that, because I suppose we're getting a bit near the
We're getting long.
yes, we're getting we don't want to keep people hanging on like too long.
So I do want to say that I will be posting a few people's little Etsy's and things like that in the description. I'll
Excellent, excellent.
also be posting Denton'S channel. Please go like
Oh,
and
well,
subscribe to his
what
channel.
can I say? What
He's
can
a
I say?
very, very, very important man.
Well, hold on, I shall strike a heroic attitude here. No, I said, yes. Um, yeah, well, I mean,
Don't
I knew that,
go
but
pummel,
tell
pummel.
them.
Go Viking raid on his subscription button. Click like on all of his videos. Let's get him back up to speed where he should be. Um,
Yes.
I will
Uh,
put his link on my description and a couple of links of some friends that have small businesses just to help them out. Please like
Lovely.
and
I'll
sub.
do the same with you. I'll put the link up to your
Well,
channel
thank you.
because
I'm just a baby new channel, so I'm still learning the channel
yes.
etiquette. I'm working very hard to make it better.
Well, yes. I mean, and I think you're doing a good job.
Well, thank
And
you.
your heart is in the right place, and and you're intelligent. You're someone who actually has a brain and uses it, and not everybody does.
Well, I
I mean,
appreciate that very much.
I have seen people sometimes talking about things, and I'm reminded of that line in the British TV show Blackadder, where Blackadder asked the rather dim other guy, he says, tell me who's using the family brain cell today, and that I do kind of sometimes feel that way with some people.
Yeah.
It is one of those moments, where you
Oh,
think, are you really that dumb? Yes, you.
yes. Yes, you are.
Of course, now someone will probably come along and say, well, in one of your videos, you said that and you were wrong. And I'll say, oh, well, don't worry, I'll think of some way to talk my way out of it. No, no, I wasn't wrong. You see, you misunderstood. Yeah, maybe I was wrong. What the hell? Because
What the
I
hell?
have to admit, even I can be wrong. It's very hard saying that, but it's true. It's true. I can. Anyway, look, it's been lovely. It's
It
been lovely
has.
talking with you. We must do this again,
Thank you
you know.
so much, Denton. I really appreciate it. I love
And thank you for hosting this.
it. Yeah.
And yes, so I will let you end the recording because I really have no idea how to do it. So I will leave
Okay.
that in your capable hands.
All right. You have a
So
good
anyway,
day.
I just have to say, from me, I shall say farewell, as it was in Old Norse, and hopefully you'll see us both again in another video. And of course,
Yeah.
tune into my channel for great entertainment, and tune into hers as well. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yep. Point. Yeah. Okay.
Thank
So,
you.
well, with that, then I shall say goodbye
All
to
right.
them
Bye-bye.
and to you. Okay. Bye for now. Bye.